I know we're live on right now on YouTube, but that song, Victor, is it's still hard for me to get used to the new countdown. It's like you're tippy-toeing and you're about to steal something, and yeah, but I'm getting the hang of it. Anyways, let's get the show back on track. It's Compas on the beat. If you don't know who I am, I'm Gilberto Manzano, full name Gilberto Manzano. I cover the NFL for Sports Illustrated, and I'm a co-founder of Compas on the beat. The network is growing, growing, growing. We're going to the top here, and it's been a minute since we've done the Looking Ahead show, and this show it's all about looking ahead. You guessed it, and we want to talk about NFL free agency. The frenzy's about to start on Monday. The legal tampering period. I don't know if we call it legal tampering period. How about we just call it the start of the new year? How about that? But I don't want to go on a rant just yet. And Victor, I already mentioned you, but great job on the new countdown clock. I know I gave you crap for the music, but the music is starting to, grow on me. So that is Victor Javier Corona, Vic, the producer. How you doing?
Doing good, man. Excited to be back. We were at Super Bowl Radio Row. We already have some people in the comments that Thier is back with us, but it's great. We're looking forward to NFL free agency, and I know people hate when we say this, but it's almost a Happy New Year in terms of the
Oh yeah.
NFL. So
Yeah, it just reminded me. So I guess everybody on Wednesday at 1 p.m. will have their tweet Happy New Year in the NFL. I hate that, but you know how I am when it comes to Happy New Year. I'll use the same joke I did last year. I'll just throw up a GIF of Larry David saying, "Don't tell me Happy New Year, but we all will." But yeah, it's exciting though. It's a fresh start for everybody. Everybody is 0-0 to give a coach cliche right there. But it really starts on Monday, the frenzy there, and we're seeing a lot of moves already, Victor. Like
yep.
there's some top players. The one thing I don't like about NFL free agency. Like they get you hyped up for about 2 months. Like, hey, there's gonna be a bunch of players available. It's gonna be T. Higgins and Mike Evans and Michael Pittman Jr. and Justin Matabuke and what Brian Burns, Josh Allen. Oh, they're all tagged. Oh, they're not gonna be available. Yeah, some free agency, but that's part of the business in the NFL, Victor. But I guess how do you feel about the NFL free agency overall? Like, how does it compare to the NBA and baseball?
It's a little weird just because of you have free agency first before the draft, so it's kind of weird with that. So they kind of do it backwards, and it works for the NFL honestly because it's a year round sport. I mean, you don't take a break. Yeah, you take a break in July, but honestly, it's a year round thing, and so and as you talked about, I've been reading some things about free agency, and you're right. I mean, you think you go in thinking, okay, all these guys are going to be available, and as we'll talk about, 9 players got tagged, and it kind of takes away from it. I think if you take away the franchise tag, maybe we get a little bit more excited about free agency, but there are a lot of players, and you have a top 50 list on SI that people need to go and check out. So yeah, go and check it out. But we'll go over your list here. We'll go over some of
Yeah.
those. We'll go over some of those players today and tonight, I should say. And can't wait to get into this.
Yeah, and also I don't want to kill the mood, but it's also that time of year where like if your team's spending money and you win free agency in March, that's not a good sign. That means you have a lot of holes in your roster and you're hoping that all these players fit together in one season and it happens. It rarely happens in the NFL. This is the time of year where you're smart with your money. You're smart about your moves. You're smart about which players are going to fit to the scheme or going to fit with the coaching staff. So the ones that just spend just to throw money out there, just make moves. Like those concern me. And you mentioned my story at SI. Also, they asked me to write rank the worst free agent signings of last year, and I got 12. I could easily get given you like 20 terrible contracts from a year ago. So it's also buyer beware season, but you never know. There's a bunch of free agents that do well and help out a team win a Super Bowl or make the playoffs. But just a quick reminder: this show, the Looking Ahead show, we want to get people involved. So if you're in the comments or you're watching right now, thank you for watching. Go ahead and ask a question about the NFL free agency. Athir's asking, where's Victor? And I'm sure people would rather see Victor on the screen right now because I feel like I need a haircut. I got to trim the mustache. And I told you guys on Monday that, or Tuesday, my barber canceled on me. So I don't want to keep seeing my mug for the next hour. But please bear with me there.
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy to just produce this show for you. There's a lot of things that we want to make sure that we get out there, especially with you. Having that story on SI, we want to
Yeah,
make sure people are informed. We want to have a little fun here, Gilbert. I mean, with these free agents, we don't want to just go over these names and not, it's going to be boring if we do that. So we're going to have a little fun. And in terms of Athir and his question, he's asking what happened. Yeah, I was wrong about Harbaugh signing with the Chargers. I will admit it.
I
Hey,
don't. I was gonna say at your. Oh, he's talking about you. Okay, he's talking about me. Okay,
he's
gotcha. Sorry, I got
yeah,
defensive right away, Victor. Sorry.
yeah, that they would give him the power. I was wrong.
Yeah,
They
yeah.
finally gave in, and it was time. Now they got to put it together, and it's time to see what they do with with Harbaugh, and will it work? Giving him all that power, or it won't. So we'll see. But I was wrong about that. I just didn't see it. They've never shown the ability to go and pay a coach, and I can go back through history. I can tell you I think the last great coach or big name coach they had was Martin Schottenheimer. So that just tells you that the history wasn't there.
Yeah, and to your defense, Victor, like, I'm still a little surprised they got it done. I wasn't saying like it wouldn't happen, and I don't like to go off of history because every regime is different. But it's hard when with the Chargers keep doing the same thing over and over again. And this time, they proved us wrong, and they're making changes to the way they operate. But it don't matter. You got to win football games, and we'll see what happens with the Chargers in a bit. And the Chargers just cut Eric Kendricks, and I know Fernando right now he's on standby because he's waiting to see what happens with Joey Bosa, Khalil Mack, Mike Williams, and Keenan Allen. So if you're waiting for a what's up Bolts free agency special, and what's the holdup? Well, Fernando and Dan are waiting for these cuts because I don't think the Chargers free agency will start until they cut these guys because you got to get under the red line for the salary cap. So we'll see what happens there, but just to go off of some quick news here, and Victor, I'll stop every now and then to get your thoughts here. But the first one that stood out to me for today, cornerback for the Chicago Bears, he's not going anywhere. And speaking about free agents, like cornerbacks are very thin. If you need a cornerback, if you want to sign a cornerback and you want a veteran, I don't know about this class here for free agents. It's not the best. And Jalen Johnson was supposed to be number one in terms of free agents, but he got franchise tag, wasn't even an option on Tuesday. And then he signed a big contract, 4 years, $76 million. And this is my takeaway, Victor. It's a pretty nice deal for the Bears for that a cornerback of that caliber who could shut down people on the outside. And I think I told you yesterday on House of Horns, like it's a little funny to me that Jair Alexander is still the top cornerback in terms of getting paid in the NFL because he's not the best cornerback in the NFL anymore. But nobody's matched that $21 million per year. And I thought it might be Jalen Johnson, and it wasn't. He's like, 18, $19 million. So hey, for the Bears, they got a bargain. And I think maybe Jalen Johnson likes to work with Matt Eberflus because they were kind of going back and forth. He was in the trading block not too long ago. So maybe it kind of was a thing where like, all right, they're not going to give me the money that I want, but I like Chicago. I like Eberflus. Let's just sign on the dotted line and make it work.
Yeah, and it fits. I mean, that's the thing too, Gilbert. We've talked about. I think a lot of the times is about fit, and he fits what the Eberflus wants to do. Now, I mean, you better sign it now because we don't know if Eberflus is going to get another year. This is a big, it's kind of like a lame duck year for Eberflus, but hey, good for him. He's been an outstanding, cornerback last season, and he proved that he was worth the money. And I mean, that's the other thing about free agency that not a lot of people talk about. I think it needs to be, said, and reminded is that you want to be able to keep your players. I mean, this is the reason you draft them is if they perform well, you should be able to pay them. And Jalen Johnson got paid and deservedly so.
Yeah, so still good money for him. He didn't reset the market or I guess start a new trend here, but it's hard to find good cornerbacks, and until Sertan and Sauce Gardner get paid, we won't really see a change there. And these transactions will be a little quicker here, Victor. But obviously, you could touch on Kevin Dotson. But Kevin Dotson of the Rams, he signed a nice deal. He got paid pretty well, and you and I were skeptical because the Rams don't really pay offensive linemen, and they got Kevin Dotson on the cheap. I'm like, I don't think they're going to meet the number that he wants. So he got 3 years, $48 million. And also, it's that time of year to kind of beware on the total money. It's all about guaranteed money, and then the out, like say you could get out of the contract after 1 or 2 years. So I think I saw for Kevin Dotson's guaranteed money, it was about what $33 million per year. I mean, for the whole contract. So that means what he's making
11.
ten to $11 million per year. That's not bad for a good guard. So if it was like what was it like 16, 17 with the entire contract, $48 million for 3 years, I'm like, this guy broke in pretty nicely for a guard who played well for a year. So I think he looks nice when it comes to the total number. He gets a nice guaranteed money contract. For the Rams, it's still also a team friendly deal. So Kevin Dotson, I think, is a good pickup there, or to keep him with the Rams. And then former Charger linebacker Drew Tranquil. By the way, check out the Drew Tranquil interview that Fernando had at Super Bowl media night. That was a good interview, and he won a Super Bowl with the Chiefs. I know Chargers fans don't want to see that, but Drew Tranquil played well, got paid, going to stay with the Chiefs 3 years, $19 million. And then Tyrann Mathieu or Tyrann Mathieu from the Saints, the All Pro, former All Pro safety for the Texans, for the Chiefs. He's staying in New Orleans for 2 years, $13 million.
Yeah, and you know, I know a lot of people talk about don't give Tom Telesco the credit, but I mean, he drafted Drew Tranquil, and I guess one of the mistakes he made was going out and getting Aaron Kendricks instead of keeping
Yeah,
Drew Tranquil. I mean, and that just tells you sometimes you just need change of scenery, and it helped to be with defensive coordinator like Steve Spagnuolo, and he'll use them well. Like that's the thing, it has to be fit, and also that defensive coordinator. So I mean, it's been a good fit, and it was a good bargain, and now he parlayed it into a multi-year contract. So good on Drew Tranquil.
yeah, it's not a good sign when I guess the player is supposed to replace Drew Tranquil, Eric Kendricks, being released the day before Drew Tranquil got another contract with the same team.
Yeah.
So yeah, I guess the Chiefs got the better end of that one. But real quick, what are your thoughts on Kevin Dotson staying with the Rams?
Uh, I was surprised. I texted you the figures right off the bat, and the reason I did that was because I was surprised. I didn't think they were gonna pay him. There was discussions, as Leslie talked about, that they were talking to their camp for trying to work something out, but this is a really team friendly deal for the Rams, and I think this also tells you, Gilbert, that Joe Noteboom is probably going to get released. I don't,
Yeah,
they'll take the cap hit, and he'll probably be a post June 1st cut to kind of, or maybe he restructures and decides to stay. I mean, having someone like Joe Noteboom that you can move around on the offensive line also helps. But I just think it also tells you that once they traded for him, and they saw the change in their running scheme, he fit perfectly. It was something different than what he was running with the Steelers,
yeah,
and why would leave something so good? So
yeah.
where it works for both teams, I thought it was a perfect fit.
Yeah, because I was asked at SI to do the stories about the worst contracts of last year, so I got to kind of refresh my memory on some of the numbers that guards and tackles made last year. In terms of guaranteed money, like Kevin Dotson got about the same or even less. So for the Rams, it came out well, and good for Kevin Dotson. Like if he gets the entire money on that contract, that's really good money. Even the guaranteed money is still pretty good for a guy who was let go for what, a 6th round pick, 5th round pick. I forgot what it was. So it was a good fit for both sides. And now for the Rams, you got to figure out your left tackle spot, but you're good with your guards there in Avila and Kevin Dotson. So like they're getting closer to completing the offensive line. So moving on now, Vic. This one's very intriguing to me because if I had to do my top 50 free agents all over again, I would probably have Justin Simmons somewhere, in the top 20. And I was actually surprised because the Broncos were pretty bad a year ago. So, I said, Justin Simmons, former All Pro, but this guy made a second team All Pro last year. He's made a second team All Pros 3 years in a row, 21, 22, 23. So hey, he's still playing very well. I know he's about to be maybe 30. He might be like 29, 28. I forget. He's been around the NFL for a bit. And it's always kind of buyer beware for these guys who get cut. But he might be a talented player, Justin Simmons, that is, who got cut because of the mess the Broncos created with Russell Wilson. They had to create some space here. So he might be one of these guys that he could still play. So Justin Simmons being let go, for me is caught my attention, Vic.
Yeah, no, I when I saw you put that in our notes, I was kind of surprised. I had not heard that one, and he's a big player. I mean, be with pairing him up with what's his name, the corner. I'm blanking on his name
Yes,
right now.
Sertan.
Uh, yeah, Patrick Surtain Jr. I mean, or the second, I should say.
Yeah,
Having that combination was really good for the Broncos secondary, and now without him, I mean, and it just tells you sometimes when you make terrible mistakes in terms of you know trading for somebody, giving up picks, also giving someone a contract, yeah, that was the other thing too, Gilbert. I totally forgot too about the fact that Russell Wilson's new contract hasn't even kicked in. So
yeah,
the you know he what he signed was he had already this contract was already in play from when he got traded to the Seahawks. So the extension doesn't kick in till next season. So he's never gonna see. He's still gonna see the money, but the Broncos are not gonna see him for what they paid for him.
yeah. That's why the Russell Wilson trade makes it one of the worst trades of all time. I think it's probably top three, and I guess according to my eyes. But obviously you trade for the guy, you give up a bunch of draft picks for him, but you don't have to pay him right away. He still had 2 years on the deal. Let him, play 1 year with the Broncos, see what happens, and then you know what? All right, let's go extend this guy. He is what we wanted him to be. But they didn't do that. They paid him the second he got there, and that's why they're in this mess. And that's why Justin Simmons is out there available. But going over now to Russell Wilson. This is gonna be my last news nugget here that caught my attention. Russell Wilson's gonna meet with the Steelers. I don't know where that report came from, where the Steelers supposedly said we have no interest in Kirk Cousins, nothing on Russell Wilson, not even Justin Fields. And I'm like, what? This cannot be a real report. You have Mason Rudolph and Kenny Pickett as your starters. So that was like, okay, don't mess this up again, Mike Tomlin. Now they're saying, hey, first team up on the visit for Russell Wilson, it's gonna be the Pittsburgh Steelers. I like it. I'm not saying it's gonna make the Steelers a Super Bowl contender. I'm not saying all that. I just like it for the Steelers to finally bring some real competition for Kenny Pickett. Like, yeah, he's your first round draft pick from 2022. And my rule is always like, you know what? If you're a first round pick, you should get 3 years. And it's about to be 3 years, but you have done nothing, Kenny Pickett, that is, to earn a job without competition. And don't tell me Mason Rudolph played well. Yeah, Mason Rudolph played well for 3 games, but he's a backup for a reason. He won't be doing that for 17 games. I'll say it right now. But sometimes I'm wrong. A lot. I'm wrong a lot. But Russell Wilson, Steelers first visit. I like it. What do you think, Vic?
No, and I'm with you on this one. I mean, look, Russell Wilson is going to play for the minimum because he wants to make sure that the Broncos pay for all that whole contract. So at this point, also he fits well with the Steelers. What does Mike Tomlin want to do? He wants to run the ball. He wants to rely on that defense. Russell Wilson is, he came up. His biggest success was being a game manager. I'm not saying that he can go back to being that, but if he swallows his pride, and one other thing, Gilbert, I think the Steelers play the Broncos this season, so
Yeah.
revenge will be on his mind as well. So yes, I do like this visit. I think it also creates competition. I you know I get not giving up on Kenny Pickett yet because he's still under that rookie contract. But you're right. You need to bring in a veteran and someone that you can use, in that position.
Uh, yeah, before we get to our actual free agency special, Victor, I got too ahead of myself. I got to give an engagement question here, and then maybe
Yes.
it's a good transition. Anyways, we're gonna be talking about free agents and potential landing spots. So for the engagement question of the week, uh, it's a fun one for free agency. I think I had where will Kirk Cousins and Daniel Hunter and I want to say Christian Wilkins. I had to hear something. Here we go. I had Kirk Cousins, Daniel Hunter, Christian Wilkins, and Calvin Ridley. So I gave 4 names there. Those are some high profile free agents. Let me know in the comments if you want to jump at the live chat and just give us your predictions. Where will Cousin go? Hunter, Wilkins, really? It doesn't have to be those 4 names too. You have some other top free agents and you have a good guess of where they might land come the legal tampering period on Monday morning. Throw it in the comments. Let's get some people chatting here and engaging here. I would definitely love that. But let me know where these 4 players can land and go ahead and add some other players. Chris Jones is not a lock yet to go to the Chiefs, but we're all assuming Chris Jones will be to the Chiefs. But hey, you think Chris Jones might go somewhere else? Let me know in the comments too, real quick. And shout out to Jesus Navarro. I know you, Jesse. Do you guys think he's winning 2 Super Bowls in the next 5 years? Is that Russell Wilson? I think he's asking Vic.
Yeah, well, he said he wants to win two more Super Bowls. He
Oh
said,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah. I laugh, and I kind of tells you my reasoning there, Jesus. But yeah, he got one, came close to getting another one. So I don't see it, Vic. So I'll keep it short. I don't know what you think.
yeah, no, I it's gonna be hard unless he goes and decides to go to a contender. I think Pittsburgh is a good landing spot. I think they have the pieces. They're just missing that quarterback. They have running backs. They have receivers. They draft well. They just got to get the quarterback right. And if Russell Wilson comes in on that minimum deal, it also allows them to be able to go and sign other guys as well. So I mean, I would like the landing spot there for Russell Wilson, but it's all about him. And Tomlin, he's not a BS guy, so that's also something. And
Yeah,
Atir, we'll get to the rest of your questions, but since we're doing this at the end of the show, we'll talk about the Chargers. We'll get into that, but for now, I'm gonna share this one.
yeah.
He says Cousins to Atlanta, Hunter, Chargers, Mac Bosa are gone.
Wow. So Daniel Hunter going to the Chargers. I don't know about that one, Thier, but then again, you were right on Jim Harbaugh. I'll give you your
There,
credit there. And
and then
Jesus has one too, right? Kirk to
yeah,
the Falcons or Broncos. I definitely like the Falcons one. It seems like it's starting to become like an obvious landing spot for Kirk Cousins, but then again, you just never know. And it's funny because anytime there's like a big time quarterback available, Victor, it's like oh, there's going to be a bunch of teams lining up, and there's always like two or three. And I started looking at Kirk Cousins the last time he was a free agent. It just came down to the Jets and the Vikings. That was it. So it might be one or two teams because it's hard to like pay a quarterback, and you got to give up a bunch to make sure this guy's set. Tom Brady was also kind of the head scratcher. It came down to the Buccaneers and the Chargers, and that's it. So sometimes when it comes to these high profile free agents, it's only two or three teams because you got to make a high bid there.
yep. All right, Gilbert. Let's get to our the player. Let's start off since we're starting free agency. Let's start off with the players that got franchised. Let's go over that. Let me give you the names real quick. You have Josh Allen, the linebacker, edge rusher for the Jaguars. Brian Burns, edge rusher from the Panthers. Kyle Duggar, safety from the Patriots. T. Higgins, Bengals receiver, and then we already talked about Jalen Johnson. Justin Matabuki, Ravens defensive tackle. Michael Pittman, receiver from the Colts. Legarius Sneed, Chiefs cornerback. And Antoine Winfield Jr., Buccaneers safety. So let me start off here, Gilbert. Give me a player that you were surprised was tagged from this group.
Yeah, there wasn't anything too surprising for me when it came to tag because those were like all those players you mentioned. They would have been probably like top 10 or top 12 in my top free agent story. So they're really good players. And you don't want to let go of good players for nothing. And the one with Snead is interesting because they don't really want him because they know they can't afford him and they're trying to pay Chris Jones. But it's more like, you know what? We can't give him away for nothing. So we'll use a franchise tag on him and they're gonna try to trade him. So that's been pretty interesting to see how the Chiefs have been handling that. But to give you kind of a legit name for a surprise, I'll go Kyle Duggar because you don't really see safeties getting that much value. And I know it wasn't the main franchise tag. I'm afraid it was a transition tag, so it wasn't as high as the other players. So that tells you. But they could still what they could have used a tag on Mike on Winu, who's one of the highest rated guards in the NFL. He also plays right tackle. They didn't use a tag on him, so they went on Kyle Duggar and for a safety he's a good safety. He's a good player. He hasn't taken that step forward to become like a Pro Bowler or an All Pro safety, which I think a lot of people in New England thought he would this year. Uh, those three guys, there were some high expectations. By the way, it was Josh Uche, Kyle Duggar, and Mike on Wino, and only one's going to come back. I don't see Josh Uche and Mike on Wino. I think I'm butchering his last name, but I think I got it right. Maybe I don't know, but it wasn't the best season for the Patriots, and to pick from those three, going with Kyle Duggar, a little surprising.
Can I give you one? I think for me it was Michael Pittman Jr. Just because he's I understand I would have paid him already. You don't have to you know, uh, pay him a lot. I just didn't think he was worth the tag here. You could have just, got at him. He's not an explosive receiver. He's not someone you think of as a number one, kind of like what you see with T. Higgins. I would have tried to, work out a deal without having to tag him. But I get it. You're also the Colts, and so you probably ran out of time. But the longer you wait, too, Gilbert, the price keeps going up, especially once the salary cap went up. I just thought, why are you tagging him at this point? You should have just, given him a like a 3 or 4 year deal, and then that way you can kind of get him at a cheaper deal. But now it's going to cost you a lot more now that you tagged him.
Yeah, a couple things with Michael Pittman Jr. I do agree with you. Like he might not be like a legit number one wide receiver. He's a really good wide receiver, but he's not like he's not like I think I might even take Calvin Ridley over Michael Pittman Jr. So definitely T Higgins. I will take him. So he's not like a guy you look at and you say that's for sure a number one wide receiver. But I'm looking at the Colts situation, and they don't really have a lot of playmakers. And you have I guess a second year quarterback now, Anthony Richardson. And to Michael Pittman Jr.'s credit, like he hasn't really complained once about going through Philip Rivers, going through Matt Ryan, going through Carson Wentz, going through Jacoby Brissett, whatever it is. They have like 5, 6 different quarterbacks like Gardner Minshew, Anthony Richardson, and every year he gets about 900 yards receiving, maybe 1,000 yards, about 90 receptions. So yeah, John Hendricks, he's a really good receiver. I went really good. I don't think he's a for sure like a top, like when you look at somebody and you say Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, like he's not in that realm. Like it's a tier below. But here's the part, the part where I like about the franchise tag for the Colts situation. You don't have that many playmakers. You don't want to let go of a good player who's been reliable through all this freaking quarterback carousel. Never complains, still productive, consistent. You know what you get in Michael Pittman Jr. And the other part, Victor, I think in terms of the contract, I think for him the franchise tag is more of a placeholder. You still have all the way into July to work out a deal. If they don't get a deal done before that July deadline, then he has to play on the franchise tag, and that could be what 24, $21 million, and that could really hurt your salary cap. So I think in the Colts' mind, it's more like, all right, we need a little more time. He's not trying to give us a hometown discount, but at least we know in the back of our mind we have until July, and they could operate that way. Say, you know what, right now it says $21 million, but it could easily go down to 5, 6, 7 if we get their deal done. So to me, I like that because he's been consistent and he's still a very good wide receiver.
Yeah, no, and I'm not saying he's not a good receiver. I My biggest I was just surprised that they tagged him. I would have taken care of him before it got to this point, and I understand why they tagged him. And as you explained, you did a great job explaining why they did that, because it offers you a chance to negotiate and come to a contract. But then, as you talked about, what if you don't?
Yeah.
Then the price keeps going up and up, and I just don't think he's worth $24 million. I just that's my only holdup with him. But no, he is a really good receiver. He's just not in that top tier as you talked about.
I'll say this: if they don't get a deal done before Monday, because teams want to know what they have on the salary cap, what it's like being an accountant. You got to make sure, all right, what can you spend here? And if you keep thinking like, what if we don't get a deal done? That's $21 million on your cap space that you probably feel like it's like a credit card. Can we pay the tab? Should we splurge? It's better to know now what you're working with, because that's why the Bears they use a franchise tag on Jalen Johnson, but they wanted to know what's the budget, so they paid him now before Monday. So if the Colts don't pay Michael Pittman Jr. before Monday, maybe it's a little harder than they thought. And it's like, okay, this guy won't budge here on the deal. And I don't knock Pittman to getting his money. Again, it's been kind of I'll say a shit show with quarterbacks until Anthony Richardson arrived and he got hurt. So it's never guaranteed, and they need Michael Pittman Jr. But it's a good conversation. Though I'm with you on him not being the best of the best, but I think situation, and he's still a good player.
Yeah, and that's why I was surprised. I mean, no, there's no shame in his game. He's a really good player, but and as John Hendrick says, they're gonna work on an extension. You can't let a player like that walk, and that's why you have these, franchise tags, because you want to have some of these middle tier teams, that aren't always in that free agent list, be able to keep your players, and that's part of it. All right, moving on, Gilbert. A player you thought would be tagged but wasn't.
Yeah, when you see 8 or 9 names, the good players got tagged, but you know what? I'll give you 2 names here, and the second one, I'm not too surprised, but a little surprised. But the first one, Xavier McKinney, the safety for the Giants. I know safeties are not a priority. It's like a little bit kind of like linebackers, but I know the linebackers are making a little bit of a comeback. So the safeties are kind of like the running backs. For like you don't want to spend too much on a safety, but I think McKinney is a really good safety. He's a versatile one, and like I started doing some digging on his numbers and watching some of his film, and it's like he's really good in coverage. And it's like if you have a free safety, you could like put out there downfield, and it could be a backup for your cornerbacks. It just makes life easier, and he could play in the box too. Like he really took a step forward this year, so maybe that could be kind of the red flag. Like it's only been 1 year him playing well, and if the Giants didn't put the tag on him, they know him better than anybody else. So that could be something there. But he's really good in coverage. He's versatile. So, but then again, how much do you want to pay a safety? That could be part of your argument, Victor. Like if you franchise tag him, do you want to give a safety 15, whatever it is, $60 million guaranteed? Maybe an extension could figure that out. But I think the Giants need playmakers, and he's one of them. They paid Dexter Lawrence not too long ago. They're gonna probably let Saquon Barkley go. So I think he should be a priority, but he might be a priority in a different way. And yeah, that's gonna be probably another one. Michael Wino from the Patriots did not get tagged, but I think for him it's more about like he's really good, but he's not like a specialist. Like he's not going to be an elite right tackle or an elite guard. So I think maybe that was kind of like where the Patriots are thinking like he's a very versatile player, and some teams really value that. And maybe the Patriots felt like, well, he's not a premier right tackle, he's not a premier guard, and they said, all right, go ahead. But that one didn't surprise me too much. The Calvin Ridley one, he had a really quiet first half of the season, but he did well towards the end of the season. By the way, when everybody got hurt, Calvin really stepped up. But it's a little bit of a red flag that Calvin really couldn't become wide receiver one right away. It was Christian Kirk. Remember, I know chemistry takes a while for Trevor Lawrence and Calvin Ridley, and they got it towards the end. But I'm surprised that in putting production and age and his issues aside, because he's had some injuries, he got suspended for gambling. I'm surprised he didn't get the tag because they traded a first round pick for him. They went after him, and to just say, you know what, after a year, we're good here. We'll move forward. That to me seems a little weird, but you never know. They might get a deal done when the open market opens on Monday.
Yeah, and I mean even Thier says Barkley, and then John Hendrick says really is he's old.
Yeah, that's the thing too.
Yeah, I mean, and he missed a year, and so I understand. I get Josh Allen. You want to be able to keep your edge rusher. I think
Yeah,
that he's one of your guys, and you want to make sure
yeah. I
that.
thought. Sorry, real quick. I thought maybe they'll get a deal done with Josh Allen. It's like, okay, that's the for sure guy, and then you use a tag on really. So I thought they didn't get either thing done here. So that was weird to me. But not to
And
cut you
he
off.
brings up a good point there that they didn't want to give up a draft pick too. Remember that was part of the trade deal too. So that I forgot about that as well, Gilbert.
Yeah, and going back to the theory on Saquon Barkley, I think like kind of like the deal with Ridley. He's older. He's a little old for a running back. 27. I know it's not old age, but for a running back it is. And you know he has a number in mind, and the Giants won't give him the number. So after a while, it's kind of like we already tagged you last year. It wasn't the best year. Like Barkley wants like Christian McCaffrey money, but he's not Christian McCaffrey. He's had injury concerns too. He was okay, and I get the situation at quarterback is not the best for Barkley, but for me, I'm not too surprised about the running backs getting tagged. Uh, you know, with the really, I guess the Josh Allen thing was an issue. His age is an issue. The lack of production in the first half of the season, but to me, trading for a guy you had high hopes for and not getting it done, that to me is, I'm surprised the Jaguars didn't do it. But the Jaguars operate in a weird way. Like, why haven't you paid Josh Allen his multi-year contract, and you could have used a franchise tag on really, but they did not.
Yeah, Trent Baalke, man. That guy, he does
Yeah.
some weird stuff, man. Like from his days with the 49ers, and I mean, I remember like a lot of people were just kind of surprised that he got the job with the Jaguars, but he's done a good job. I mean, yeah, you got Lawrence there, you were able to draft him, but you got lucky with that. But they made it work. They got to the playoffs last season. They collapsed this past season. But one name I'm going to give you, Gilbert, that I was kind of surprised, and he's one of those free agents that I'm we'll talk about later. But Jonathan Grenard, I thought,
Yeah.
why not tag him? I mean, look, you don't you're the Texans. You have money. You have a quarterback on a rookie contract. Why not take care of one of your young pass rushers here and tag him? And as we talked about with Michael Pittman Jr., like at least try to come together on a contract. At least tag him. I just now you're just leaving him for someone else to come in and pay for him because we saw him ball out towards the second half of the season.
Yeah, with Jonathan Grenard, that is interesting. It could be maybe what you were mentioning, Michael Pittman is like, hey, we don't want to put the franchise tag on this guy and have to pay him a bunch of money if we don't work out a deal because he does have some leverage right now because he was a very productive edge rusher. They want to keep that duo going with Will Anderson Jr. and Grenard, but there's also kind of some concerns, right? Because I think he was injured a lot early in his career. He showed some flashes as being a very good pass rusher, but he didn't put it together into this past year. Like it's always kind of a concerning to pay a player who just had one breakout year. Like, why is he having a breakout year? Is it because it's D'Amico Ryans? And if D'Amico Ryans and the Texans are saying, hey man, like you did well because of our coaching staff and our scheme, like you gotta kind of go lower on the money there, and that's why the players have agents because it gets a little messy. Like teams don't care to throw a bunch of things at the agents, like hey, your player has been hurt, your player has never made a Pro Bowl, your player only had a one good year. Like these conversations happens, and luckily for the players, they don't have to hear it unless they're doing the agent portion themselves. So uh it's very surprising. Like I thought I would have heard like if you don't use the franchise tag on Grenard, I thought I would have heard extension by now. Okay, don't let that guy go to the open market. But here we are on a Thursday night, and you still haven't got it done. So that could be a very good player available come Monday.
Yeah, and I mean, we'll see what happens during free agency, and these players that weren't tagged, and see what they go for, and whether we were right or wrong. But one last question here for you, Gilbert. Which player or players that were tagged get traded?
Yeah, the obvious one is L'Jarius Sneed. Like they want to get Chris Jones done, and they can't afford to pay Sneed there, and maybe they'll lose some kind of leverage in terms of trade negotiations. The Chiefs, that is, because they know they can't afford Sneed, and I know that like the tag numbers, like there's like draft picks that are or set in, but he could always rework that and say, you know what, we're cool, we're waiving that. We don't need to have our first round pick or a second, two first round picks, whatever. And maybe the teams are saying, you know what, Chiefs, you better take a second rounder or third rounder because we're about to pay a bunch of money to Snead, and we already know you can't even afford them. So let's make a deal, get it done here. But the one I'll kind of throw you a curveball here, Brian Burns of the Panthers, and I knew they're gonna franchise tag Brian Burns at least because you can't let him leave for nothing. Because we know the report. The Rams, offered two first round picks, and if you're the Panthers and you let Brian Burns walk for nothing after the Rams gave offered you two first round picks, and you didn't take that, and he leaves for nothing, that's a bad look all around. But I think the Panthers really have to focus on offense. And say you flip Brian Burns for a first round pick and a third round pick, then you get more assets to help out Bryce Young, help out the offense. Because maybe I'll get in trouble here with this one. Brian Burns and is a very good edge rusher. He just doesn't seem like an elite edge rusher. He doesn't seem like a Miles Garrett or Nick Bosa. Like he's like a second tier edge rusher. So do you want to pay a guy top money who's not going to be the best of the best, and you can maybe get a first round pick for him because edge rushers are hard to get. And we all remember the Khalil Mack trade with the Raiders is like John Gruden saying they're hard to get pass rushers. Well, you had one and you traded him, but hey, you got two first round picks. So uh, I think the Panthers would need a lot of work. I would not be surprised if somebody gives them a good offer, they trade Brian Burns.
Yeah, and I'm with you. I mean, you have to get something for him. I mean, that's part of using your franchise tag on here. But to Athir's, he's saying, hell no. It's already been reported that they're asking for a second round pick, and you have to sign him. So,
For
I
Snead,
mean, yeah, for Sneed.
yeah.
He's saying Sneed.
And
Yeah.
how much would he get? $20 million? Like Jalen Johnson didn't even get 20 million, so I don't know.
Yeah, and as we talked about on House of Horns, we don't. I mean, part of the problem is the better cornerback there was Trent McDuffie this season, and he got lit up in the Super Bowl, so that's also a thing. You have to also think about scheme, and that's the problem with free agency. Sometimes is is you try and pay. We saw that with Jackson and the Chargers when they went and signed him. He didn't fit their scheme. They just went and signed him because they needed a cornerback. So that's the other thing you kind of have to keep in mind, that you want to go and get a guy who fits your scheme. Well, is Ladarius Need worth the money and the draft capital? Yes, if he fits your scheme. That's part of the deal too, guys.
I could also see, I would not be shocked if like a team is like drafting 28, 29, 30th, giving up a first round pick. But you got to think about it. You got to give up a first round pick, and then you got to get this guy $20 million per year on the annual basis for a contract. And I like Jerry Sneed. He shut down a bunch of top wide receivers, but he was playing a dominant defense with Spags and a good situation. And like you mentioned, Victor, I think we both agree Trent McDuffie is a real playmaker there, or the better one from the two. So first round pick and $20 million per year. Now you're asking for a lot. And like I mentioned, I think the Chiefs don't have that much leverage because teams know, hey, if you want to get Chris Jones on your books and pay him, you got to let some guys go. So let's make a deal here. So in terms of that, you know, I would not be shocked though if they do get a first round pick, but it's asking for a lot. And there's too many times where I see players who, you think will get a first round pick back, but they don't because it's all about the contract and the money. And the teams are saying, you know what, you're asking for a lot here. Work with me, and the team that's trying to trade the player tends to give in.
Yeah, I agree. All right, Gilbert, let's move on. Let's go over for those of you who are joining us, make sure you go and check out Gilbert's story on SI. His top 50 free agent list. And so we're going to have a little fun here. So let's go over some of the free agents, and we'll do so by position group, Gilbert.
Okay.
We'll have a little fun by having you be our shopping expert. So you're going to give us a big ticket player, our best for your buck, like best buck for your money, and lastly, one player that will have a team with buyer's remorse. So let's start off. We'll give this a. We're gonna start off with the quarterback position, and so we have. Let me go over some of the quarterbacks on your free agent list. You have Kirk Cousins, Baker Mayfield, Russell Wilson. Out of those three, who's your big ticket item, your best value, and your buyer beware?
Yeah, and for those watching, go ahead and drop some comments too. You want to play along, John, Athir, Jesse, anybody watching, go ahead. Feel free. I want to hear your thoughts too here. But Victor, for the quarterback, for the big ticket, it has to be Kirk Cousins. He's the number one quarterback on the market. He's going to get paid the most money here, and it's going to be interesting because Kirk Cousins made a lot of money in his career, and he's done this the right way when it comes to business, getting the 2 franchise tags in Washington, getting all that guaranteed money, or yeah, everything was guaranteed on the 3 year. I think it was 3 years, 80 something, $84 million from the Vikings. Then he got a couple more short term contracts, all guaranteed. So he's made a bunch of money, and he's out there again. He's a good player, but it's a little bit. I know I won't give him the buyer beware, but it's also like Kirk Cousins has won one playoff game in his career, whatever it is, maybe two. So buyer beware, but he will be the big ticket for sure. Best value is Baker Mayfield because he won't get the Kirk Cousins money, and also I feel like I'm pretty convinced Mayfield is going to go back to the Buccaneers, and it won't be like a massive deal. I don't know. Quarterbacks make a lot of money, and I think I was reading something today that Mayfield might even make like the Daniel Jones contract. I know he won't get the full 4 years guarantee, but he was getting 2 years and he's making about $40 million for 2 years. That is really good for Baker Mayfield. So maybe he might not be the best value there, but he was playing pretty well towards the end of the year. And I this is where I really give it the best value. It was with the Buccaneers. He's found a home there. I get it. It's not Dave Canales doing the play calling, but he knows Liam Cohen, the new OC here in Tampa Bay from the Rams days when Liam was the OC. So there's some connection there. Mike Evans is back. He got re-signed. By the way, the Buccaneers are doing this the right way. They uh they prioritized Mike Evans and said, you've been around the longest and you've been a baller. You get the contract extension first. Antoine Winfield Jr., you're not kind of high on the list, but we really like you. Franchise tag. Baker Mayfield, you got here for 1 year. You haven't done it for a long time. We will deal with you soon and we'll pay you before the open market happens. So if they get them done before Monday, Buccaneers, perfect way to execute your in-house free agent. So I think for me, I like Baker being the best value. And then buyer beware, it has to be Russell Wilson. Like for a couple of things. Russell Wilson, do you still view yourself as a starter? And if a team says, yeah, you're a starter, like you're gonna pretend like Russell Wilson's still that guy. like that's asking for trouble. So Russell Wilson could maybe, go get a starting job somewhere, but I really feel like he's been pretty bad the last 2 years for a reason. So definitely buyer beware.
That's a good big ticket item, best value and buyer beware. So and just make sure you go and check out his story. But we're going to continue on, Gilbert. We're moving on now to the running backs. You have Josh Jacobs, Saquon Barkley, Tony Pollard, DeAndre Swift, Derrick Henry, and Austin Eckler made your top 50.
Yeah, I'm going to try to go a little quicker, but I know the running backs are so many of them to get to. But for the big ticket, I think it still would be Saquon Barkley. Athir mentioned him being a surprise, not franchise tag player. But I think Saquon, injuries have not been too much of a big issue the last couple of years. He's not, a guy's going to get you 1,500 yards rushing and like what 500 yards receiving. Like we all thought he's going to be that type of player earlier in his career. Now it's more like he'll get you 1,000 and maybe like 200 yards receiving, so not too bad. So I think somebody's going to take a chance on his versatility, Saquon Barkley, and then best value. Derrick Henry to me is the best running back from all the free agents because every single year it's 1,000 yards. I think 2 years ago he got 1,500. Last year 1,100 yards. Will get you 10 to 12 touchdowns. But the concern with Derrick Henry, and this guy's durable. The biggest thing is for the red flag for the running backs, it's age 30. He's like 31, 30 years old. So teams are gonna be like, you know what? We don't want to pay for a guy with a lot of miles on the body and also being older. So somebody might get a nice deal for Derrick Henry, and this guy's gonna still produce 1,000 yards. I could definitely see that. And buyer beware. Maybe it's kind of a, with DeAndre Swift, he played well with the Eagles, but the situation was bad all around there. But the offense didn't do well. DeAndre Swift got let go by the Lions. That's another red flag. So he's had some injury concerns. I think DeAndre Swift, he's a running back that needs to go to the right fit, the right situation. And if he doesn't land there, it could be like Miles Sanders going to the Panthers and it did not work out for him.
Yeah, for me, like for best value, I would have gone with like a. I know he's not on your list, but it would be like Zach Moss. I really
Yeah.
like that one. You brought him up on House of Horns, and I thought about it, but he wasn't on the top 50 list. So, and then like for buyer beware is Tony Pollard. Like I don't know what to expect. He was giving the keys with the Cowboys, and he didn't really produce, and so it'll be interesting to see where he ends up. And I think he needs to be kind of like a change of pace kind of running back. I think if he goes somewhere where they already have an established running back and he can come in and kind of spell that the top guy, then a running back on a rookie deal would help. So I think bringing him in it would be that kind of situation. All right, Gilbert, let's move on to the receivers. You got Gabe Davis, Tyler Boyd, Marquise Hollywood Brown, OBJ, Chris Samuel, and Calvin Ridley. I'll be honest, I was kind of surprised you guys had OBJ on there.
Uh, yeah, I'm a little surprised too. It was me and a colleague, but I shouldn't say who pushed for that. But also too, I'll say it's to defend both of us. I don't like to kind of out who pick who, but uh, there's not a lot of wide receivers available out there. Yeah, maybe OBJ should have been like if you're like I know my good friend Greg Rosenthal does 101 free agents on NFL.com. I'm not even sure he made Greg's list 101, but he's definitely belongs more like in the 60, 70, 80 range. But there's just not a lot of wide receivers, and people always take a chance on the big names. Look at last year where the Ravens gave him $15 million for what 30 catches and 400 yards receiving. So teams take a chance on OBJ. It might happen again here, but yeah, he's not in any of my lists right here for the one for this game they've been playing here. But big ticket is going to be Calvin Ridley, and like John and Athea mentioned, there are some concerns there. He is older. He has missed some time. It took him a while to get adjusted with the Jaguars, but I thought he played great down the stretch. So if you're a team like the Panthers and you can't afford to like chill out a wide receiver and you got to go and be aggressive. The best one out there is Calvin Ridley. So if you want to help out Bryce Young, we saw what Mike Evans did with Dave Canales. Dave Canales being the head coach now of the Panthers. Maybe really does something with Carolina, but we'll see what happens there. Best value, Curtis Samuel is going under the radar, Victor. Curtis Samuel still is an explosive playmaker. It's not his fault he was playing in Washington, but whenever he got an opportunity, he has reliable hands, made the most of it. He kept getting open down the field. The balls weren't coming his way because he has poor protection and he has some bad quarterback play. But I think Curtis Samuel could be definitely a best value. Like imagine Curtis Samuel going over to the Chiefs and replacing MVS for the down the field threat and on a cheap contract. I could definitely see that working for sure. And then I'll throw in again for the buyer beware with the Ridley. We've laid it out for a bunch of items here, but that's how thin it is. Like obviously it could be OBJ if you want to say buyer beware, but like it's getting to the point where like maybe don't even buy him. But you know, Tyler Boyd's a little older. We also have Marquise Hollywood Brown could be somebody. Could
That
either
would
be
be my buyer's remorse,
yeah.
to be honest with
He
you.
might get paid too because of the lack of wide receivers, and if he does get paid pretty handsomely, it will be buyer beware for sure.
Yeah, just because I mean, for me, Marquise Hollywood Brown, I mean, he was drafted as the number one guy in Baltimore. Then they traded him for a first round pick to the Cardinals, and he's never lived up to it. He's and now there's guys like him all over the. You saw the receiver from the Texans. It's that was just drafted and he got hurt. What was his name? Tank Dell.
Yeah, Tank
Yeah,
Dell.
Tank Dell. I mean, and that's what you want to see. I mean, and we'll see what happens. And then we didn't have a tight end, but John Hendricks,
Oh
he
yeah.
says he likes Noah Fan.
Yeah, the only one that was going to be, I think, in my top 50 was Dalton Schultz, and he got re-signed. So yeah, it's not a lot of tight ends either.
Yeah, but he's gonna be he's somebody to keep an eye on. I think Noah Fan is gonna end up somewhere because I mean he was a first round pick, and he's one of those Iowa tight ends that hasn't really
Yeah.
broken out yet. A lot of the Iowa guys usually break out right away, so maybe he's a late bloomer. All right, Gilbert, let's keep this moving, and we're gonna
Yeah.
go to the offensive line here. You have Jonah Williams, Kevin Dotson. I put him on. You guys had him on before, he resigned today. Teron Smith, Kevin Seidler, Mike Owenu, Lloyd Cushenberry, and Robert Hunt. Big ticket item, best value, and your buyer beware.
Yeah, I think Tyron Smith, the left tackle for the Cowboys, might be a future Hall of Famer. He's been really good at his position for a long time. Obviously, injuries have caught up to him the last couple of years. He played 13 games this year and is still a very good left tackle. So, if you need a left tackle and you have money to spend, do it on one guy. It's Tyron Smith. I think obviously injuries could be a concern, so maybe he could be part of the buyer beware. But he's still a very good left tackle. I would take a chance on him, but he's still the star of the free agents for offensive line. Best value. I really like Robert Hunt. He could play the zone running scheme. He's a physical guard. He has experience playing tackle, and he's just a guy you want to have protecting your quarterback. This guy's a bodyguard. Like, he's for sure like one of those enforcers on the field. Like, hey, don't mess with my guy. I have your back. So, uh, especially in that scheme with Mike McDaniel, where it's a lot of bombs away, you better hold down the fort for a while sometimes and let Tyreek Hill get down the field. It doesn't take too long because he's really fast, but that kind of vertical scheme, you better have good blockers. Robert Hunt's been pretty good.
And he's a big dude for a
Yeah,
guard.
yeah, that's a bodyguard, so he can even play tackle in a pinch if you need him to. But buyer beware, like obviously it could be also be Tyron Smith because of injuries. The tough thing with going getting a veteran offensive lineman, a lot of them get old or they break down, and so I'll just say Kevin Zeitler from the Ravens. He's been around for a while. I think he might be like 33, 34 years old. He's bounced around, but he found the home with the Ravens there. That could be more about scheme than the player. So if you go after Kevin Zeitler, make sure you're running something similar to the Baltimore Ravens.
Yeah, and he broke down the stretch. I mean, age it caught up to him, so he's got to go to a good situation. You don't want to pay him. He shouldn't be one of those guys, the first guys that goes. He should be like a third tier guy that signs later on. But that's a good list, Gilbert. All right, let's moving on now. We're gonna go to the trenches now on the other side of the ball, and we're gonna go to defensive tackles. You have Christian Wilkins, Leonard Williams, Danico Autry, Chris Jones. It's your big ticket item, your best value, and buyer beware.
Yeah, this is just more assuming that Chris Jones is going to sign with the Kansas City Chiefs. It hasn't happened yet, so it's going to be really interesting if Chris Jones hits the open market on Monday. Like, will a team out there, make a strong offer to take him away from Kansas City? But I think the Chiefs will get it done eventually, so I won't throw him in here. So Chris Jones is off the board. I will go with Christian Wilkins being the big ticket. And a lot of times at this time of year, you got to ask yourself, why is this player available? Why is a team letting go of a player on the open market? Like, this has to be like a red flag going on. What's going on here? But there are just times where a team just can't afford a player. They handle the salary cap poorly, or it was more like, you know what, we have 4 or 5 dudes we're going to pay, and we're just hitting on our draft picks, and we're just doing so well that we just can't keep everybody. So a couple of guys go on the open market. I think Christian Wilkins could be one of those guys, and he's 28 years old, a little older, but only has been it's been in the league for about 5 years. Played through his whole rookie contract in Miami. He seemed like he was a leader in Miami. He set the tone. He's a physical player, a good run stopper, and then also a good pass rusher. I think he had 9 sacks in 2023. So Wilkins for sure. I think it's one of the top free agents available. He would be the big ticket. And this guy wasn't one of my top 50. It's a little thin at defensive tackle, so I had a little fun with this one. For the best value, sometimes it's okay to be a specialist, and you need a run stopper, somebody that can help you out in the running game. Grover Stewart from the Colts could be a guy you call to stop the run. Like the Cowboys, a team that doesn't have a lot of salary, doesn't have a lot of salary cap or cap space. That is, get a Grover Stewart. It won't cost you a lot. He's a veteran. He can help you with stopping the run. But then again, the Colts know what they have in him, and they might try to keep him also too on a cheaper deal. I think he got suspended about 6 games last year, so that was kind of an issue. But when he's in there playing next to DeForest Buckner in Indy, he's a very good run stopper. And then buyer beware. Leonard Williams has always been a very good player, but not a guy that's like, he's made so much money in his career. Like how's he getting paid? Like, why are teams taking a chance on this guy? He went from the Jets to the Giants to the Seahawks, and the results hasn't been out of this world. But he's a very good. He's a versatile interior defensive lineman. Could play on the outside a little bit. Could still rush the passer. So he's getting to the point where he's more of a specialist than an all around interior defensive lineman. So that's why I put him at buyer beware.
Yeah, no, I like that list, and I think for me the bargain one would have been Danico Autry. I just
Yeah,
like he's everywhere he's been. He's whether he's been with the Raiders, he's been with the Colts, he's been with the Titans. Every stop he's been good. He's consistent. Like he produces, and if you go and get him, I think you're gonna get your money's worth. So I think he's a good value there. All right, Gilbert. Moving on to edge rushers. You have Daniil Hunter, Chase Young, Jonathan Grenard, Bryce Hubb, Cedarius Smith, Josh Uche, Jadavian Clowney, and Andrew Ginkgo.
yeah.
What's your big ticket, best value, and buyer beware?
Yeah, the Vikings better make sure they re-sign Daniel Hunter. If they don't, he's going to be the best edge rusher on the market, and he's going to have a lot of teams interested. And yeah, he's a little older too, but he's coming off a career year with Brian Flores. I think he got 16 and a half sacks. So definitely my big ticket guy, Daniel Hunter, that is. And then best value, like I mentioned on House of Horns, it goes Daniel Hunter and then like a big drop off. And there's some guys that you're kind of enticed about because they have the skill set or the size, they flash, but they've never been an every down edge rusher. They've never played a full complete season, so that's kind of concerning. But if you're gonna take a chance on one of these guys that's only had one good year, best value is definitely Jonathan Grenard. He really stood out. And injuries have been an issue for him, but he's had his flashes. So like if you say he was healthy all along, he might have been already a good player. But it doesn't help that when D'Amico Ryans came on, that's when he got good. So maybe he's more of a system player. But I definitely will take a chance on Grenard, and I think he'll give you the best value. But he might cash in. Who knows what's going on with the Houston? And then buyer beware for me. I mentioned this yesterday too. Josh Uche from the Patriots. He's only played like 30 to 40 defensive snaps in his career with the Patriots, and for some reason he couldn't win a starting job. He got 11 and a half sacks in 2022. I was expecting him to take a leap in 23. It never happened. I get the Patriots surroundings were pretty bad. But there's something that he didn't do right for Bill Belichick. He never wanted to play him. Even when Matthew Judon got hurt, like his snaps did not increase. So he has the attributes, he has the skill set, he has the sacks and the flashes. But I would definitely be buyer beware for Josh Uche.
Yeah, for me, the only one that I'm going to comment on here is the buyer beware would be Chase Young. Just he's got to go to a good system. and somebody who can coach him up, because it seems like, whether the DC that I'm guessing he didn't listen to with Washington, and then with the 49ers, he needs to go with someone that can put him in position, you know, be able to set the edge, because people were just running on his side every time when he got to the 49ers. And so even with Washington, people would run at him because they knew he couldn't stop the run. So, and
I,
the effort wasn't there. He needs to be coached up. He needs somebody that he can actually, a coach that he can actually pay attention to, because the two he had, whether it was in Washington or with the 49ers, he just didn't give an F.
I'm gonna make a prediction, Vic. I think he gets a 1 year preview deal somewhere. He won't have the market that he probably thinks he's gonna get, and it's gonna be a 1 year preview deal. And he might do well in that 1 year preview deal, but I don't know. I don't know if I see a team. That's why I didn't put him by everywhere. I think teams are gonna be very weary of what's going on with Chase Young. Maybe we'll get like a 10 year. I'm sorry, 1 year, $10 million contract, and that's good enough.
Yeah. All right, Gilbert. Moving on. Linebackers: Levante David, Patrick Quinn, Devin White, Frankie Lubu, and Jordan Brooks.
Uh, yeah. So for big ticket, it could also be a little bit of buyer beware. Patrick Queen, he really picked it up in 2023. He's playing in the Mike McDonald scheme, and he also started playing well. And this could be a red flag when Roquan Smith got traded from the Bears to
Yep.
Baltimore. Surprise, surprise, he started playing better. He got a little more comfortable. He wasn't the main guy in the middle anymore. He was a number two there. So that's very concerning. Like for Patrick Queen, I think the best bet for him is to stay in Baltimore. But then again, the Ravens already have to pay Justin Matabuke. They also don't have a lot of salary cap too. Obviously, Lamar Jackson's on the books here too. So you've mentioned this before, Victor. I think the Ravens do value inside linebackers, and they're one of the rare teams that want to have two or three. So they might make an effort, but sometimes it's just tough to keep everybody. And if Patrick Queen only had one good year, they might be like, okay, we're good letting him go. If he gets a better contract, we're okay with that. That's fine. So that could happen with him, but he's definitely the number one linebacker in this class here. For and I'll mention this one for buyer beware, but I'll go with best value first. I think Frankie Lubo got lost in Carolina because Carolina's Carolina, but he's a versatile linebacker. Can help you against the run, physical, sideline to sideline speed. So it's going to be interesting to see what type of money he gets, but I think he might end up being a good value for somebody, and then we'll see what happens. Buyer beware, like I mentioned, should be Queen again too, but I think you never know. Sometimes teams feel like we could help that guy, we could fix that guy, we could get him back on track. And Devin White being a former first round pick, I forget he was like top 10, top 12, something, maybe even top five. I'm blanking. It was Devin Bush or
Yeah,
Devin
he was
White.
top five.
Okay, I get confused between Devin Bush and Devin White. But Devin White was a top five linebacker, and for a good amount of years, he was kind of living up to it. Not like okay, this guy's really good, but like, okay, he's good enough. He's being okay with it being a top five pick, and it just fell off last year. Like it got to a point where Todd Bowles was like, I can't play you anymore. He lost his starting job, so in the contract year, that's very concerning. But if you look at the tape for the first 3 years, 4 years, and you're saying you could work with that, Devin White's still a young player, you could take a chance on him. But if say this was 2022 and Devin White was a free agent, or sorry, 2023, he probably would have been the number one linebacker on the board. But he had a terrible year in Tampa Bay, so definitely buyer beware with Devin White.
Yeah, no, I mean Devin White balled out during that Super Bowl year, but since then, I mean he hasn't lived up to expectations. And I'm with you. The guy that I do like here is Jordan Brooks. I think he's somebody to kind of keep an eye on, Gilbert, from the Seahawks. I think he got kind of lost in the shuffle there. He got hurt. I
Yeah.
think if he ends up in the right situation, I could see him getting about $10 million a year if he ends up in a good situation. And then Frankie Lubu would be perfect with the Vikings, just with that scheme where they, he's a good, he needs to go somewhere where you can use him as a pass rusher, where you can use him to blitz. And I think Frankie Luba would be great with the Vikings, just because we've seen what they do defensively there. So I think he's someone to keep an eye on if he ends up with the Vikings. All right, Gilbert, we're down to our last two positions here. Let's go with safety, and then we'll finish up with cornerback. So safety: Xavier McKinney, Jeremy Chin, Geno Stone, C.J. Gardner Johnson, Cameron Curl, and Quandre Diggs.
Yeah, the big ticket will definitely be Xavier McKinney. He's number one right now, and I probably should have thrown in Justin Simmons because he got released today. But it'll be McKinney, and then maybe like Justin Simmons could be a number two here. But he's definitely the big ticket. I like McKinney. He's on the younger side. Like I mentioned, he's a very good in coverage. Could definitely play in the box too. So if you have a good defensive coordinator or a good scheme there, take a chance on McKinney. But I'll be a little surprised if the Giants let him walk. But we'll see. And then best value. I probably should switch. I think somebody. I don't think Justin Simmons is going to get a big contract because he's older and he got cut. So he might be the best value. But to kind of stick with my original pick here, I think C.J. Gardner Johnson could be a value because look at last year. He did not get the contract that he wanted. It was more of a prove it deal. But it might be another prove it deal because he got hurt with the Lions. I think he only played 2 regular season games. But when he played in the playoffs, he was great. He helped Aaron Glenn defense. He helped some of these younger cornerbacks. Like he was able to. He has experience. He's a playmaker. There was even rumors about him going back to Philadelphia because the Eagles never replaced him. They sucked without him, and they're saying, "Okay, we miss you." So, but I don't think he's going to command a big contract because of the injuries that he had. So I think he could be a bargain when he's healthy. He's a good player, and also he's physical and he's a grinder. Sometimes you want people to kind of agitate people. Nothing wrong with that, especially if he goes back to Philadelphia. And then what's up, Jorge? You're here late, but you're always on the live shows. We appreciate that. You were on earlier for the Combat Compas, so thank you for that, Jorge. Good to have you here. Uh, and then my buyer beware for the safety, Cameron Curl. A lot of people like him, and I gotta be honest, I didn't know too much about him to start doing my research, and it's like, but why? He played on a terrible Commander secondary, and okay, I started doing some more research, watching some of his highlights. I'm like, okay, I can see why. He's all over the field. He's physical. He takes some chances, but for the most part, good tackler, very nice in coverage. But you played on the worst secondary in the NFL, and also Kendall Fuller. We'll get to him in a bit. Like, how do you have Kendall Fuller and Cameron Curl, two DBs who are going to be well sought after free agents on the worst secondary? So that to me raises some kind of concerns.
Yeah, and I mean, for me, I'll be honest. I mean, from this list that you guys put out, Jeremy Shin, I think he's going to be someone that is going to be sought after. I think, I'm kind of surprised that he's not going to be a big ticket item, but I understand with Xavier McKinney. I mean, I love that one, but I think Jeremy Shin is kind of getting overshadowed here. I think
He's had some injuries too. I feel like too, right?
right. Yeah. But he's someone to kind of keep an eye on. I mean, and I told you, Gilbert, I thought, this past season we saw the resurgence of defenses and how they're using safeties and also how they're using safeties and linebackers now. Safeties are going to be pretty big. I think they might not get that big contract, but you're also going to see them, you know, be needed a little bit more. And I think safeties might be more of a priority in this free agent list than cornerbacks, just
Yeah.
because you there's the cornerback class in the draft is really solid. So I think safeties is someone to kind of keep an eye on. And yeah, Jorge, I am here too, but this is Gilbert's show. I'm just here producing the show.
He's the very important part of the show, Jorge. So
Yeah.
it's not just my show. Uh, but yeah, the last one's cornerbacks, right?
Yep, let's go over. Let me give you the names here. Kendall Fuller, as you mentioned, Kenny Moore the second, Stefan Gilmore, Christian Fulton, and Shidobi is it
Wouzier.
Awuzie? There you go.
Uh, this one is very interesting because again, there's not a lot of good cornerbacks out there. So I just said F it, and for the big ticket, I went Stephon Gilmore. Yeah, he's older. He's if he leaves, it'll probably be what he's Buffalo, New England, Indianapolis, Carolina, Cowboys. So there's a lot of teams for Stephon Gilmore. Hey, but he was still playing very well when Trevon Diggs went down with the Cowboys. Stephon Gilmore became the number one cornerback. I know we all talked about Deron Bland and the pick sixes there. He was more the playmaker, but when it came to being a reliable shutdown cornerback, that was Stephon Gilmore. He could still play. Obviously, you don't want to be on the wrong side where he finally comes to your team, and that's when Father Time gets him and he goes downhill. I get it, but it doesn't have to be a massive contract. Again, like a 1 year deal. I don't know, maybe $10 to $12 million for Stephon Gilmore, but he's reliable. He's consistent. I rather have him than a Kendall Fuller, also older, not as good as Gilmore. Uh, you have Christian Fulton, who's had some injuries. Also, Woozy also has some injuries, so not a lot of options. So I will go with Gilmore. Best value, I will go Kenny Moore the second because it's people don't talk about this a lot, but it's hard to find a reliable slot cornerback and inside cornerback. They get asked to do a lot of things there. So Kenny Moore is a very reliable inside cornerback for Gus Bradley in Indy. Yeah, he's had some ups and downs, but 2023 he was pretty solid. So I think he'll be the best value if you're in need an inside cornerback. Buyer beware. Christian Fulton has some upside. He was with Tennessee. He had a terrible contract year. He's had some injuries, up and down play. So with him, you could be the team that wants to fix him, but he's had some issues in his career.
Yeah, and he got beat like a drum. I mean,
Yeah,
every
it was
time
really
I
bad year.
say it seemed like they were picking on him, and I mean, I understand why you chose him as your. I love the Kenny Moore. Kenny Moore, I think if he goes to the right situation, I think the coach should re-sign him, just because he got hurt midway through the season, if I recall, and then once he came back, that
Yeah,
defense took off again. So, and they were one of the most surprising defenses. They were like a top 10 defense there at the beginning of the season when they got off to like a 5-2 start, I think it was, or they were 6-2, I forget. But yeah. And then I just want to pay this off for a tier. I don't know if he's still with us, but I want to make sure that we get this in for him. And then I want to, before we go, Gilbert, I just want you to give me three predictions of a player landing somewhere or the best fit before we go. So Atir said Herbert and Harbaugh will have success this year. Fourth easiest schedule. There will be a playoff team. However, not much money to spend in free agency. And Gilbert, I'll say this to Athir. I think the Chargers are in the position that the Rams were in last season, where they have the same. You have a quarterback, you have the coach, you have players where you can you're able to take advantage of the schedule as well. It'll be interesting to see how that schedule kind of turns out, because we don't know if they have the fourth easiest, but it also depends on when you play teams. So I do like the Chargers to be this year's Rams, like, or last year's Rams, I should say. And then the last thing he said was, but next season over 120, we have Chargers will be playing. He says in the Super Bowl in San Francisco. Promise, watch and see. So I just wanted to get that in because he wanted to make sure we got that in for him. So
yeah,
there you go.
yeah. I'm very curious to see if 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 I guess in the next couple of days, and Joey Bosa's cut, and Keenan Allen and Mike Williams and Khalil Mack and Jim Harbaugh is like, I'm done with these old ways and with this old roster. It's time to do it my way. Let's get rid of them. That's gonna be a very telltale sign to me. Like he wants to shake up the roster, you know, go the long way, establish culture, establish identity, build it his way. Yeah, ask Athir for the lotto numbers. He knows it all there. Uh, but I think Jim Harbaugh's going to shake it up. He's going to set the tone and just say, you know what, we're going to do things our way. And yeah, we might lose some talented player, but it's going to pay off. Like it's like look what the Rams did. Look what the Packers did. It was a reset year supposedly, and they made the playoffs. So you can still make the playoffs when people are freaking out and saying, "Why are you letting go this guy? Why are you being cheap right now? Or why aren't you paying? Why aren't you doing this?" It's okay. This you don't want to be the one winning in March, and you rather win in April. That's when you really want to win. You get a good draft. That's when it does matter. So I could definitely see Jim Harbaugh just cleaning house, setting the tone, and that's okay. That's not the worst thing to have it. And uh, for Staley, please don't say our way. Did I just say our way? Their way. I don't know. Uh, but yeah, have something different. Who has it better than us? Nobody. I'm not Dan Diego, so I can't be as fired up. But yeah, if Jim Harbaugh is doing things differently, that's a good thing.
Yep, because that's why you gave him the power and you allow him to do the things the way he wants to structure this team. And I don't blame. It's gonna be interesting to see how they go about it in terms of the Chargers. But I mean, as some people say, in Jim we trust, and so we'll see what happens there. It'll be interesting now. He gets to put his own stamp on. One thing I will tell you, Gilbert, is that one of the things that I heard in the combine was that the offensive line for Michigan, the ones that are coming out, they were the most ready guys. I mean, so don't be surprised if Jim Harbaugh picks some of his guys from the offensive line, because as we heard from some scouts, they're ready to go. So that'll be something to keep in mind. But Gilbert, before we go, we're closing shop now. I just want to give me three predictions here. Pick any three players and give me where the best fit is for them.
Yeah, you know what? I feel like I should pull up one of my stories and just say help me out here because I actually did write like players that a player that each team should go after, and also a story of a prediction where like I kind of had to give my best guess here. So let me pull that up real quick and try to give you some of my best guesses here.
Yeah,
Uh,
so do like a tier here and give us like the lotto ticket in
yeah, I'll
terms
try.
of the three predictions that will go right according to Gilberto.
You know what? I'll kind of protect myself here. I think the Cardinals are going to be one of the teams that bets on these young edge rushers that like haven't put it together because they have Jonathan Gannon. Remember, Jonathan Gannon helped out Hassan Reddick, find his footing in Philadelphia. So I think Jonathan Gannon's going to say, you know what? Bryce Huff, you've only played 42 snaps in your career. I mean, 42% of the snaps in your career. We're going to make it to a starter. So, and by the way, maybe I should have made my best value for edge rusher Dorian Armstrong. We gave Armstrong a lot of love on House of Horns. He's an edge rusher that I think might do something, but he wasn't in our top 50, so I get that. But I think Bryce Huff could be something for the Cardinals. The easy one, Kirk Cousins to the Falcons. I definitely could. I could see that. You know what? I had Gabe Davis going to the Ravens because Gabe Davis knows how to block, and the Ravens need blockers because they have a run heavy scheme there. So nothing kind of too exciting on that front here. So I'm trying to, you know what? Chicago Bears. I had Josh Jacobs going there because I think the Bears really miss David Montgomery's toughness and just running between the tackles. So you bring Josh Jacobs, who's also a physical running back, to help out Justin Fields, Caleb Williams, Drake May, Jaden Downs. I don't know who they're going to be the quarterback in Chicago, but whoever the quarterback is, bring in Josh Jacobs to help out. I don't know how you feel about that, Vic, with the Raiders,
Yeah.
but go
No,
ahead.
it's interesting because, I've heard that if Antonio Pierce stayed with the Raiders, that Josh Jacobs was most likely going to come back.
Mm,
But one thing I've learned, Gilbert, is that with free agency is if you show me the money, I'm gonna go there. So and especially with the running back position, we've seen how yes, I grew up a Raiders fans here in LA, so they're the team that I followed. But yes, I do I've become a little bit of a non-believer here just because I become more of a NFL person now, so I don't follow them as closely as I used to, but I still here and there I know what's going on with them. So yeah, I mean, if you want to say I'm a fan, yes, from far away,
but
not as much as I used to be.
the only thing I say about that for the Raiders, they do have Tom Telesco now, and he doesn't tend to pay his running backs unless it's on a bargain deal. And then you see Zamir White going off the last 4 games, so I don't know, maybe Josh Jacobs. But like you mentioned, they did say if they have AP around, they'll make it work. But let me give you two more predictions here. Uh,
Okay.
and this is more me wanting to see the fit, but we'll see what happens. You mentioned you mentioned Tony Pollard earlier. I actually like Tony Pollard. I get it that he needs to have a bell cow next to him. That's not a good thing. But when Tony Pollard is in a good role and kind of playing the Austin Eckler role of being a versatile pass catcher too, I really like Tony Pollard. And I would like to see Tony Pollard working with Kevin Stefanski with the Browns. And you could play in that good scheme there. You can maybe help out Deshaun Watson. I know Deshaun Watson hasn't been the same quarterback. And then I don't know if Nick Chubb will be back because that was a very severe knee injury, but that's your bruiser, right? Nick Chubb will be the bruiser. You're bringing Tony
Right.
Pollard to be like your versatile running back. But that's, again, it depends on Nick Chubb. So I like that. And then one more, I don't know why, but the Colts are kind of known for taking some chances. I think Chase Young goes to the Colts as on a 1 year prove it deal.
Oh, I like that one. That's a little bit. I'm gonna give you one in terms, and maybe you'll call me a homer, but I just been. It just seems like the right fit. Christian Wilkins to the Raiders
Oh
makes a
yeah.
lot of sense. That one, it just makes you also have no state tax there. They have the money. They've been looking for that guy forever to pair up with Max Crosby. It makes a lot of sense. Maybe that's why it doesn't happen, but I just think there's a lot of also lying season. It's that type of year where people are lying to each other, and the whole Antonio Pierce coming out and saying, "Oh, we're gonna draft, we're trying to move up, and we want one quarterback here." I just think they're gonna try and be the defensive bullies now. And I think if you go get Christian Wilkins, I
Yeah.
think that's a big guy to go and get. Um, I'm with you on Kirk Cousins going to Atlanta. I think that's one guy there. He's at Jorge is asking. Tyree Wilson is either going to be moved inside, from what I've been hearing, or he's going to be on the outside. So he's more of the way they want to use him. Gilbert is they want to use him as the Justin Tuck. If you remember him with the
Yeah.
Giants, where they use his NASCAR package. That's the same kind of style they want. When Justin Tuck got to the Giants, he struggled out on the edge, and so they kind of moved him in and out. So you'll see him being moved around, and I think that's where Tyreek Wilson is going to thrive.
Uh, yeah, I actually for that story that I told you about SI, I had Christian Wilkins going to the Raiders, and they're gonna probably make a run at Kirk Cousins. So if they miss out on Kirk Cousins, I could definitely because they have the money. Go and help out your good your amazing player Max Crosby. Help him out on defensive line. So get yeah, nice comment there. Christian Wilkins with Max Crosby, and maybe if Tyree Wilson ever does anything, that's a very good defensive line. And you also have Patrick Graham there. And since we have LA people here, so I had Zach Moss going to the Chargers,
I like that
and
one.
because they need to fix their running game, and it's Jim Harbaugh, and he wants a physical running game. But they also have cap space issues, so you can't splurge for a Derrick Henry or a Saquon Barkley or whatever. Zach Moss is going to be on the cheap, so I think he'll go to the Chargers. And then one more for the Rams point of view. I said this yesterday. I think they go after Tyron Smith and get that left tackle there and
Yeah,
bring him back home.
that's another good one that I like too. I was going over some of the free agents, and just what if one person that we haven't really talked about? I know we said Kirk Cousins to the Falcons, but what about Mayfield to the Falcons? I mean, he has Raheem Morris. He knows Zach Robinson as
Yeah,
well.
yeah.
Now the new OC. I would keep an eye on that. Just you never know. I mean, we don't know what the situation is with Tampa Bay. I mean, he's a free agent. He can go wherever he wants.
Yeah, if Monday rolls around and he's not back with the Buccaneers, I could definitely see Raheem Morris and Zach Robinson making a phone call. But I think they might prioritize Kirk Cousins. So if it might be something where Baker Mayfield has to wait a little bit, but yeah, it's definitely a good option. Those are two guys that will command a lot of money in the open market. But I still see Baker going back to the Buccaneers.
Yeah, and then one last one I'll give you is I just think Abe Davis goes to the Panthers. I think either
Mm.
they're gonna try to give Bryce Young a weapon there. But so we do you want me to share this one? Because Jorge says that you should ask that question when Dan's on the pod, that we should ask that question about whether someone would get a massage with Deshaun
Oh
Watson.
yeah, yeah. Maybe not on the live show, but we'll have Dan talk about it.
Yeah, there we go. All right, Gilbert. So now everybody's ready to go for free agency. I feel like we kind of had a little bit of fun here. The new year starts on Monday. We've already see some deals come. Get signed already. But what are your expectations? Are you think it's going to be a crazy free agency, or is it going to be a slowly, just because there's a lot of talent in this draft class?
Yeah, and I would not be surprised if free agency gets started a little early because all these players like a Baker Mayfield gets re-signed, maybe the Neil Hunter gets re-signed to the Vikings. So that might make Monday a little boring. But I am surprised there's like 4 or 5 guys that haven't been re-signed by their respective team. That could happen over the weekend. But then again, if it doesn't, that's more excitement for Monday.
Yeah, and I think that's gonna. And then one last question here from Jorge: do cuts have to happen before free agent starts, especially from Mike Williams, Cleo, and Joey?
I don't know if it's mandatory, Jorge, but a lot of teams want to get under the red line for the salary cap because you want to know what you're working with on your books there for I guess for your accountant on the team because you can't be like, hey, you know what, we want to go sign that guy. Well, how does that work for your salary cap? You still haven't cut Joey Bosa or Khalil Mack, and it's like, Yeah, we'll do it eventually. That's not really a good way of doing business. So I feel like I think these teams will get under the red line come Monday. They're all going to be cap compliant by then. So I'm not sure about the mandatory rules, but it's good business to make sure you know what you're working with. So I think those cuts, Mike Williams, Khalil Mack, Joey Bosa, Keenan Allen, will probably come Friday. I told Fernando, I guess I told Fernando it's going to happen Friday. It's going to be a Friday news dump. It's going to be all in one swift news release and call it a day. But it could happen Sunday. It might even happen early Monday. So expect it to happen before free agency though.
Yeah, and that's the thing too, Gilbert. I mean, as we've seen with the Bills, I mean, it could just
Yep.
happen where they just dump everybody all at once, and that's part of the deal. I mean, you just don't know when it's going to happen, but I mean, that's a pretty good guess on a Friday. That's usually just hey, don't look over here. So he said, okay, if it's
Yeah.
Friday, you're the real star of the
If
show.
Fernando told me if it is Friday, I have to go jump on the What's Up Boats live show. So you might
There
see
you
me
go.
again, Jorge, with this really out of control mustache.
Yeah. All right, Gilbert. So that's all. This was fun. I was glad that you agreed to do this. I want to have a little fun with free agency. I read your story, and I wanted to make sure we got something out there for the folks. I mean, I heard you on a different bunch of other places, and I'm like, hey. We have him. Why not use him
Yeah.
to be able to, this is your podcast, so let's get your knowledge out there to the people. So I'm glad that you played along with me and decided to do this.
Yeah, this is fun. We haven't done the looking ahead show in a minute. And again, it's all about looking ahead and answering questions and seeing what's going to happen in the NFL world. But hey, I've been really into combat sports lately, so maybe we'll talk some combat sports during the slow period. But we don't want to disappear throughout the whole off season. Obviously, we'll be here for free agency. We'll be here for the draft. But we might need to kill some time, and maybe we'll have some random conversations every now and then. But that doesn't hurt. Get to know people, get to know each other. That's why we do the show here on Thursdays, and it's been pretty fun.
Yep. All right, Gilbert. Go ahead and close us out now. If there's anything else you want to get out there, let the people know. Maybe something they can check out on the Compas
Yeah.
on the B network.
Yeah, just follow Jorge Rodriguez's lead. He's been on everything. Jorge's been on all our lives. So we're doing our lives on Mondays. We're doing lives on Tuesdays. We're doing uh House of Horns live on Wednesdays. We're doing the looking ahead show on Thursdays. We're trying to do more combat sports. So just keep checking the channel here, Compas on the beat. And like we mentioned, we've been growing subscribers. We got 3,000 in a month, so that's pretty cool to say. So a lot going on here for the network, but you want to help us grow, check out all the links in the description. There's a PayPal donation link that will go towards equipment and creating more content. We have a merch site. You get a cool hat like this, certifiedcompost.shop. If you jump on a live and you could do like a super sticker, super like, super whatever, that also goes a long way to helping us out. So just check out the description for all the links and the way you can help out Compost on the beat. But having your support, having people watch, having people like, comment. That's all been very helpful, beneficial, and it's been awesome to see.
Yeah, it's really cool, especially with all the new subscribers, and just seeing people, like Jorge, you know, we have people who jump on and support the channel, so that's really awesome. And it's all about having that, being able to have those conversations with people and allowing them to share their conversations, share their opinion, because hey, you're the expert here, Gilbert. You're the NFL expert, but there's people that want to share their
Yeah,
opinion, and we want to hear from you. Whether it's John Hendricks, whether it's a Tier, like we love having the feedback, and so that's been really cool to see. So appreciate everybody who checked us out today.
yeah. All right, it's time to get going. It's been 90 minutes here. That's the same amount of time where Jimmy went to the bar and Chelsea was at home waiting for Jimmy to get home. I was only at the bar for 90 minutes. That's a Love Is Blind reference. Sorry, I had to get one in here. I just watched the wedding finale yesterday. But yeah, let Jimmy go to the bar. He will not be going to the altar. But 90 minutes in, it's time to get going. But on that note, ya nos vamos, pues, vámonos.